Welcome to the Clear Brand Academy podcast, where we take the mystery out of marketing and help you get more leads and sales with a clear brand and proven marketing tactics. I'm your host, Alexander Toth. Today I have the pleasure of having a conversation with Josh Ramsey. He is our business development manager, and he has a great story of how he found and then joined Clear Brand. So rather than spending too much time on introduction here, Josh, I'd love it if you just jump in and tell us a bit about your story.
Hey, Alexander, thanks so much. It's great to be here. And I think it's the result of, I know it's the result of what we're going to be discussing later in the podcast today. And so my story is, I think it's an interesting one because I came across Clear Brand. Let me cycle back a little bit. I've worked in child protection in the social enterprise space for the last couple of years, 3-4 years. And we reached a point that we had to look reality square in the face and accept that our growth metrics hadn't been where we wanted them to be for whatever reason. And I've learned what some of those reasons are since joining the team at Clear Brand. But eventually I got to the point where I had to say, I need to take my skills and apply them into a commercially oriented venture so that I can keep doing this mission work on the side. So I started Googling around and I found the Clear Brand website blueprint. I found it on YouTube of all places. Wasn't in the site that Clear Brand has. It was on a YouTube video that I watched. 8 marketing tools that you need to know about because I was busy positioning myself as a marketer, given what I'd been doing. And I just found this blueprint and I was blown away by it. And then I clicked around a little bit more because I was busy building my site for my consultancy. And I found Clear Brand Academy and I bought that immediately. I was pleasantly surprised to see what was in there. And then I took it to the next step and I reached out to the team. One thing led to another and I ended up in a meeting with you. We had a couple of good conversations. And a couple months later, here I am joining the podcast and helping other businesses achieve what I achieved, which was the goal of connecting to something bigger, using better language to talk about what I was doing. And that's what led me here, which is I'm very happy to be here. So thanks for having me.
So this is such a cool journey because you went through what most folks would call, our basic sales funnel. And we're going to be kind of discussing sales funnels a little bit here and there. I think that they function a little different from how most people do. But you basically went through this journey. You discovered Clear Brand, you buy some stuff, you have a conversation. Now you're working with us. You helped us launch our Amplify program. You helped us to revamp our Clear Brand Academy after being a customer of it, which I think gives you really
that was the best.
Insights.
That was the best experience, man, because I was just binge watching. I was working in the child protection space at the time, kind of doing talks in schools during the day, and in the afternoons, evenings, I was building my site using the template and binge watching all the content and of course all the YouTube content as well. And then to be on the other side of that, I just ran an Academy webinar the other week, which was, it's very surreal for me and it's great. And a result of the implementation of so much of what we teach at Clear Brand, which is, I know we're going to get there in this podcast, but it's just great. Beautiful circle. Yeah.
Great. Beautiful circle of life here, which is fun. We always want to get insights from our customers. And so it's so fun to have somebody who's been through that whole journey and been a customer on the team. And, of course, not every single customer is identical to you.
Yeah.
But it's still a whole bunch of fun. And you've been doing a fantastic job with being the community manager within Clear Brand Academy and helping us to launch Clear Brand Amplify, and now the business development manager and implementing some of what we're going to be talking about today and in the coming weeks, especially as we've been working through these marketing myths that we've been talking about in the podcast the last few weeks, changing the way that we approach marketing based on the research that we're coming across, based on validating old ideas or sometimes proving them to be wrong, and then bringing new ideas in. So you've been a part of this great journey, and it's just been awesome to have you on the team. So today,
thanks. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, and I'm just again, I think my being here is a direct result of the fact that I could be here. Right?
Mm-hmm.
There was a million places that I could have ended up, a million teams that I could have joined, but I joined this one because it was right in front of me when I needed it.
Yes.
And that, I think, is a really, really important thing that all businesses need to be doing, needing to be available to the people that want to interact with them, want to buy with them, want to, join their newsletters, check out their site, whatever it is. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, and that brings us to our main topic for the day, which is availability. So let's define this, right? If we're looking at marketing and what marketing includes, most folks are all over things like, oh, you got to be doing SEO. You got to be running ads. You got to ... this. And from what I'm seeing, there's so much focus on the what. This is the thing to be doing. But there isn't a whole lot of focus on the why. And so this is part of what we've been digging into and looking at, okay, SEO generally works really well, but why?
Yeah.
And as we've been asking these questions, what we've arrived at is there's actually three main parts of marketing, three main activities that marketing needs to be engaging in. First is building memories. Second is maximizing availability. And third is reaching the market. So most folks, when they think about marketing, it's focused in on this reaching the market space, reaching people, right? Running those ads, getting in front of them. But availability is massive. And that's where we're going to go today, especially because that's how you ended up here.
Yeah.
It wasn't because of an ad. It wasn't because we got in front of you. It was because you found us. And those
because
are,
you were available.
Right. That's the main difference between reach and availability.
Yeah.
Reach means we got in front of someone, and availability means we were able to be found and bought.
Yeah. And, from the get-go of interacting with ClearBrand, the courses, the podcasts, what I love about what we do is we take that step back, right? We take that, how can we get a higher perspective on this action that is getting us a result? And we could double down on it and triple down on it. But hold on, is there another action? Is there 5 other actions that we could be doing? And I love that thing that we do in kind of receding back and just asking that deeper why. And of course, I don't think you ever, well, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Did you ever sit down with a team and you're like, guys, we need to be available to South African buyers? I'm a South African. South African guys that are looking to build a consultancy in marketing who, at this price point and is that what you did strategically?
No.
Exactly. Because that for me brings back that why of available, but available to who?
Right. I mean, to who? That's a great question. I think, we've been talking about marketing myths, and so I'm still kind of there a little bit, and I want to get out of marketing myths, but this is a huge one, is, picking a target market and then focusing all of your efforts on this target audience. The truth is your audience probably doesn't look like what you think it does. Yeah. And so even as you're hearing this and listening to this, it's like, you got to go check. You might be saying, oh no, of course my audience looks the way that I think it does.
Yeah.
But if we look at the data, and I think Harley Davidson's a great example of this, picture for a second who you think is the primary customer of Harley Davidson, right? They've got tattoos.
Yeah, that's tattoos. That's the first thing that came to mind. Tattoo, beard, biker jacket.
Yep.
No helmet.
No helmet. Right. They're on their motorcycles all the time.
Yeah, living the dream. Live free, die hard? No, that's a movie.
Right. Well,
we'll
these
get to
people,
memories later.
They only make up 3.5% of Harley Davidson sales.
Man, I love data.
Right. So 40% of Harley Davidson sales come from people who we would never think were Harley Davidson customers, right? They don't care what kind of
Yeah.
motorcycle they drive.
Yeah.
Their motorcycle's in the garage most of the time. They don't really have tattoos. They're not in a biker gang, right? They're not going to get in a fight over Harley Davidson. That's 40% of Harley Davidson's sales.
Yeah.
3.5% comes from these people who we would describe as their ideal avatar.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I mean, you would not have been part of what we considered an ideal avatar, but you're here. You're one of our customers.
Yeah.
And so I think that the first thing in availability is to be open to the possibility of people being a little bit different from what we expect.
And obviously I'm still looking at a lot of the child protection work I do through this lens. I'm still I'm still active in that space, less so, but in a more focused way, which is actually great for the business. It is a business. And we got a marketing consultant in, and we paid that marketing consultant thousands of dollars. And we followed the advice, and the advice there was to target women between the ages of this and this because they're the decision makers, and this is the avatar, and they're the ones that are concerned about their kids. But, when you look at this lens, grandfathers, grandmothers have grandsons, children that they're concerned about their safety and sanity online. And they're going to tell their children, hey, go look at this webinar, go look at this product that this company is promoting because I care about my grandchild or my niece, my cousin, maybe it's an au pair. There are so many potential customers out there that we can't use our little perspective here and just assume that we know. I mean, it's so I guess the reason I say that is that at the surface level, it seems so simple. Be available. Yeah, of course I got to be available. But the implications of it in terms of strategy, in terms of our ad spend, in terms of what I guess ad spend is reach, but we'll dig more into that. I think it's just for anyone listening that's like, oh, I get that. Just take a deeper second and think through some of the cases that we're going to be exploring and the examples that come up because it has huge implications.
Right. I mean, so the first principle of availability is we want to go where people are looking. And so if we've created this target audience that looks like what we think the Harley Davidson buyers are, and we start asking, well, where are they going to be looking? Really quick, we start crossing things off the list. Those tattooed folks aren't going to be looking there. Yeah. So we've got to first open ourselves up here because we don't want to be crossing things off the list if people are actually looking there, right? Knowing that 40% of Harley Davidson's buyers come from this target audience that looks nothing like what we would expect, that suddenly shifts. Well, hold on a second. Let's ask. Maybe those people are looking somewhere else. And the idea with maximize availability is we got to be everywhere that somebody might be looking. Yeah. Now, so we're going to jump into that. The other principle here is don't give a reason not to buy. Right? If you can get in, if you can be available and get noticed and you're on the short list, right? We can stick with this motorcycle here for a second. If somebody's looking at 3 or 4 different motorcycles, if you're one of those 3 or 4 motorcycles, you've got basically a 25% chance. If there's 4 options, you've got a 25% chance of getting chosen randomly, right? Now, if you talk to sales folks, I've interviewed a lot of sales folks over the year, typically I have a 25% close rate. Yeah. Okay. That's, decent, but it's also equivalent to the number of people the number of options people are generally looking at. So if people are looking at 4 options and your close rate's 25%, that means you didn't screw it up. Right? Yeah. It doesn't mean that you have a super high close rate. It means you got chosen at random. You didn't get removed from the decision-making process. Yeah, it's like the web dev arriving in a meeting and say, guys, the online shop is working. Yeah. You can click on it and you can buy stuff. Yeah. Isn't that great? Like, well, that's bare minimum. This is like, getting ticket to the fair. Now we got to do something. So baseline, we got to get on the list and then we got to not screw it up, basically. Yeah. If we can improve that and push it up above, if most of the people who are looking at buying the thing that you sell and they are choosing, let's say 3 options, they generally find, let's say toothpaste. They've got 3 toothpaste that they look at. And if they choose randomly, you've got a 33% chance of being chosen. So that means your close rate should be at least 33%. If you've got somebody with a 40% close rate, that means that they're doing a fantastic job, right?
Yeah.
But let's go back to availability here.
Yeah, because if you're not on that shelf,
you're not going to be one of the
person's going to walk in and be like, I'm not going to buy toothpaste today. Toothpaste will be bought.
Yes.
But it just won't be you because you're not on the shelf.
You're not on the shelf. Right. So we focus on digital marketing. So what does that mean to be on the shelf in digital marketing? So the first place generally is going to be Google. If you're asking where do people go to buy the thing that I sell? Well, for most companies these days, the first step is Google. They're going to go look it up.
I heard it was 92% of search terms online or Google. Is that still the stat?
And then the second highest is YouTube. So I mean, Google and YouTube, the two of those are going to be dominating the search market. So
case and evidence right here.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
YouTube
you found us through
and
YouTube.
Google.
Yeah, you were looking for digital marketing tools. You watched this video. We were there. So we were in stock on the store shelves that you were looking at. You just happen to be looking at store shelves on YouTube. That's the perfect example here.
Yeah.
But sometimes, let's say that a person actually is selling a physical good. The answer to this question of where people go to look for not only my product, but my category of product, because that's what matters, right? You're in competition and your competition is already available. So where are people going to look for my category of products? So for us, it's a marketing agency. Where are people going to look for a marketing? Well, that's going to be Google, right? But if we are selling toothpaste, where do they go to look for toothpaste? It might be
retail
grocery stores. It could be Amazon. Those are probably the two biggest ones. So what are the grocery stores you want to be in? All of them.
Yeah.
And then you want to be on Amazon. You might have your own store potentially online. So that's going to be, but that's the main question. Where are people going to be looking for what I'm selling? So at ClearBrand, we don't view Google as advertising. We view Google as store shelves. And so we're looking not at the searches for the sake of doing SEO, right? SEO, in our view, is part of getting on the store shelves. So the first thing we want to do is get on the store shelves for the searches that people type in when they're actually looking to buy.
For this category. Remember, not the product, right? So the category, And I think that's also interesting because in my own example, ClearBrand was one of 8 tools. Right? There was the YouTube clip was about 8 tools that you need to have in 2022. One of them was a resource that you guys have.
Yeah.
So I wasn't looking for what you have. I was looking for the category of what it is that you have. So I think, again, it's stepping that one step back and giving a lot more options for SEO.
Yeah.
Right? In terms of where you want to be on the shelves and how many shelves you can be on. Because a lot of people would say, well, I'm just toothpaste. All I can be on is, dental hygiene. That's the shelf that I'm on. But that's not the case if we take a step back and we look at the associated shelves that are around it.
Yeah, and that's where an SEO strategy comes in. But we're not going to engage in SEO for the sake of SEO. We're going to engage in SEO for the sake of availability, right? So we're going to have this strategy. First, show up on the main shelves people are looking for, and then we're going to expand out into a variety of uses would be where we would go next. So toothpaste is pretty specific. But this is where we might have the fluoride-free. We might have the whitening toothpaste. We might have, pain or sensitivity. These are all different uses. And if we're able to use maybe our blogs and our SEO to show up on Google for these searches, we have now showed up on more store shelves. Now we're on the store shelves for the pain and sensitivity toothpaste. And we're on the store shelves for the fluoride-free and for the whitening and ... So now we're on more store shelves.
And I want to bring to mind that idea of the availability. You weren't targeting South African males looking for marketing services. You were making yourself available. And if we take this idea of the shelves, imagine all these people coming into the store. They don't all go to the same shelf. They're moving through the store, and now all of a sudden, all of these potential customers, you're maximizing the number of potential buys because you're on all these shelves, and they happen to be going through to a shelf that's not related directly, as you might perceive it, to your product or service, but it's in the same space, and they see it and they go, "Oh, great, that's distinct." And I'm sure we'll get to that at some stage.
Yeah, I could use this.
Yeah, I could use this. This solves a problem I have right now.
Right.
Yeah.
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 So that's search, right? Now, Google Ads, if you're the search ad specifically, you're buying shelf space. So we don't really consider this in the traditional way that we would consider advertising, which is getting in front of people, right? Advertising being things like commercials and stuff like that. We see Google search ads as buying shelf space. And so for us, that is a foundational element of almost all marketing strategies. If people are going to Google to look for things in the category that you're in, Google search ads are necessary. You've got to be buying that shelf space so that you at least, right, the first step of marketing is we got to get considered, right? We got to get seen so that when somebody puts together the short list and then they're going to make a decision from those 3 or 4 options, you're one of those 3 or 4 options. So we've got to be available and get onto that short list.
Yeah.
So
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
From these search ads, still spending a little time on search here. We've also noticed a massive shift in Google recently. For most of the high intent, like buying search terms, so marketing agencies near me would be an example of this. Real estate agents near me, or in Colorado Springs or whatever it is. But if it's a clear, this person's looking to buy, what we've seen is many of these searches, the organic results are dominated by lists. So things like top 25 real estate agents in Colorado Springs, right? Things like that. And it's list after list after list. And the whole first page for search terms like that are lists.
Yeah. And that is in line with this perspective of availability, because those are companies that have gone out and figured out which shelves are the biggest or which shelves are getting the most eyeballs, and they're going, okay, cool, let's get samples from all those shelves and put them on our special little display, and then our display is going to get all these eyeballs as well, and then they've got benefits of monetization or whatever they've got around that. But again, it makes sense.
And that's the big secret here that a lot of these lists don't want you to know, is they are charging for people to be on their list. So, I mean, one, that kind of reduces my trust in the list in general, right? These aren't actually the top 10. These are the top. These are the 10 that paid for it.
Their top 10,
right? Yeah,
their top paying 10.
Yeah, so that's kind of that's outside of this. But as far as availability goes, that's a huge opportunity for you. And for us, we can buy our way onto those lists. Those lists are more shelf space. And we can buy that shelf space, and we can get on those lists. Typically, it's $100 to $200 per month is how much folks are charging for a spot at the top of the list. And so you can pay for that. And now, I mean, if we're talking about this long journey of SEO, and all these marketing agencies are focusing in on, you got to rank for as many keywords as possible. I mean, that might be true in the long term. But in the short term, if we know that real estate agents in Colorado Springs is dominated by these 6 lists, step 1 is to get on those 6 lists, right? Well, I mean, step 1 would be to do the Google ads so that you're at the top of the page. Step 2 is to get on those lists. And often there's a free version where you can just create a free account on their directory page, and they'll push you on one of those lists for free. You'll be at the bottom, and then you pay to get up towards the top. But that's what you're buying. Is you're buying shelf space that's closer to eye level. Yeah. So this is huge for availability.
It's huge, and it also there's something just fundamental about it. I always used to wonder, why are people spending so much money on? Why are these companies spending money on billboards next to the highway? I know those are expensive, and I'm told that very targeted Facebook ads yield an incredible return on investment. Why aren't they just doing Facebook ads?
Yeah.
And the fact is, they're doing it because it works. and it's,
Right.
might be considered legacy, but this online space, it still is governed by these laws, these deep kind of immutable truths of advertising, of getting your brand out there. Well, and being available is now translating into, as you say, these kind of online billboard spaces where you can grab some of that real estate to be available.
Yeah, and I think I love that you mentioned billboards, because this is going to be different for every company. And this is where, if a marketing agency you're talking to, let's say that you're looking to work with a marketing agency and all they're talking about is SEO and keywords, they're missing the point. Sure, SEO is good and keywords are good if it's shelf space, right? If it's helping people find you. But it doesn't, SEO doesn't matter for the sake of SEO. It matters for availability. And sometimes, for McDonald's, a billboard next to the highway makes a whole lot of sense, because this is a person who is in their car and they're going somewhere and they might be hungry.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be available. And I think billboards would be more about reach in that case, but you're still reaching the right people.
Yeah.
So we've also got to be open that our strategy is going to be a little bit different from, it's probably going to be very similar to our category, but it might be different from other categories. So a physical product, you got to get in all those grocery stores or whatever stores people sell your products in. If it's electronics, you're going to be in Best Buy, and you're going to be on Amazon. And this is, I think it's fascinating that Apple sells their stuff on Amazon. Why would they need to? I don't think they need to. I think that they're there to be available. Right. Yeah. That's the second part of this principle.
Because some people buy on Amazon because they've got an Amazon gift card and
a
million other reasons that our customers are buying based on things that we've got no clue about.
Yeah.
It literally happened to me earlier today. I was reading a book, and in the book, it happened to mention toothpaste. And it just happenstance that we mentioned toothpaste earlier, but I was like, oh, that's the task. I got to buy toothpaste. I quickly went online to the online store that I always buy from. And I was like, the brand, I put in the brand name because I know that's the toothpaste that works. And I don't have to think about it. I don't want to review 25 different toothpastes.
Right.
But if it wasn't there, I would have got something else. But in terms of my buying process, we don't have this kind of avatar that fits the mold, and 100 people buy 100 different ways. So we got to be available to all of them.
And that's that second part of the principle, which is don't give a reason not to buy. So if you've got that store that you always go to, that online store, and the toothpaste you want isn't available, that's a reason not to buy. You're just going to buy somebody else's.
Yeah, that's a sale right there. Yeah.
Right. And so it absolutely makes sense. Apple has the online Apple store. They've got the physical Apple stores, but they're also selling their products in Best Buy and Amazon. They're just not giving people a reason not to buy, which is absolutely incredible. And it's probably part of how they became big.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. You can't not see their shelf space.
Right. Yeah, they're everywhere. Absolutely.
And something that you mentioned earlier that I just also want to pick up on. You were talking about sales closing, right? 25%. There's 4 products on offer or being considered. A buyer generally will think of 3 or 4. So if that's what the close rate is, that is what your conversion rate is. That's pretty average. And you were talking about this extra 10%. And I think it's important that we also recognize, of course, availability is not enough. There's a lot of other dynamics within, getting these sales and getting growth. If you're selling if the packaging is crazy bad or if this is that, there's a lot of other dynamics. But this is the ticket to get entrance. Yeah. I mean, there's.
Yeah, I like thinking about that. This is kind of your ticket to play the game.
Yeah.
Right. So even if you're in the sales call, hey, you made it, right? You were available, you were found. Now you're in the sales call. We don't want to give people a reason not to buy. So pricing is going to be part of this. We've got to be competitive. There's always tiers to products, right? There's the low end, the mid range, the high end, but you've got to be competitively priced within your tier. Being in between tiers, and some industries, it's tough to tell what the pricing is. Marketing agencies generally hide their pricing. So for example, that's a big example of, well, which tier are we in? And there's different ways that you can find out, but most products and services, the prices are displayed somewhere. And so you can figure out which tier you're in, and you can get yourself competitively priced. It doesn't need to be lower than everyone else. It's okay to be a little higher, but we want to be competitively priced. And if we're looking on Amazon for something, we can look at the ratings, how many stars do they have? We can look at the pricing. There's all sorts of things, the packaging. And this is all going to go into, are we giving people a reason not to buy?
Not to buy.
Does our product look terrible? Is it way more expensive? Do we get bad reviews?
Is it confusing?
Do people even know what they would use it for?
Yeah.
That's all going to be part of this process of being available and making it really easy for folks to buy from you.
Yeah. I mean, it makes absolute sense. And again, it's an accelerator for progress, because if I think, again, just to bring back the example of my child protection initiative, we had this tagline of practical digital parenting. And it was only in the third year where my co-founder was sitting at a barbecue, at a dinner with someone. And the person said, well, what do you do? What are you passionate about? And I said, well, we do about this thing called practical digital parenting. And this parent turned around and said, what is that? And here we were inside the bottle, talking about this thing. And the day after that, we changed it to keeping kids safer and saner online.
Way more clear.
It's clear what we do.
Yep.
That's what we do. What do you do?
Better.
Keeping kids safer and saner online.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah. A great application. And that's the value of a frame like this is just zooming out and it can be, it's kind of like going to the doctor. You might get bad news, but it's bad news you need. And looking at your brand, looking at your brand assets, looking at your messaging through this, am I getting in the way of people buying? Am I available to people buying? It can be a very humbling process. And I think it's super important for marketing professionals to take that, because the grind of marketing never stops, right? And we can keep busy. As you mentioned SEO in the beginning, we can hunt all those SEO terms and niche, and this one's ranking and this one's not ranking, and there's low competition and this one's cheaper. And, we can write reports on it and we can dazzle clients with it. We were dazzled by 3 marketing agencies. We ended up rebuilding our site 3 times in 3 years in this particular initiative that I had. And, it was just a fundamental missing of this frame, this perspective of taking a step back and analyzing why are we doing what we're doing. So it's a great lens to have.
Yeah. And I think taking a step back is exactly what this is about. We can get lost in the weeds of SEO and we can get lost in the weeds of ads. But to really address the question of, are we available? We have to take a step back. We can't be, nose down. We got to lift our eyes up a little bit and look around. Oh, well, where are people looking? Where are our competitors available?
Yeah. Great. So we're getting into some questions here that are going to be useful for applying this.
Yes.
So are there any questions that we can ask ourselves that'll help us figure out if we are available and if we are making it difficult to buy? You mentioned, where is our competition? What other questions can we use? You just riffed those right away, so I want to dig into them.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first question is, where do people go to look for our category, not just our company, but products in our category? Where do people go? And from there, you're going to get some initial responses. Do they go to Google search? Do they go to grocery stores? Do they go to electronic stores? Do they go to Amazon? ... Maybe all of them. And then we're going to start pushing in to each of those spaces. But before we do, I also want to know about the competitors, because your availability in reality is actually relative to your competitors. So if they're already everywhere, you got some catching up to do, and you might as well learn that and acknowledge that now.
Yeah.
It's possible to find some places that maybe they hadn't considered yet. Yeah. Make yourself available there. But you've also got to be available in the places that your competitors are. And so that can help to gain some clarity in this is doing some research on your competitors and figuring out where they're listed. And you might find some areas that you had not yet thought of. So first, we just want to find out all of the places that people go to look and where our competitors are and where people might be wanting to buy these things. That's a big question. So first, I just want to acknowledge that, right? This is a big question, and this could take weeks or even months to really go through and find the answer to these things, right? If you got to be in grocery stores, there's a lot of grocery stores to get into, you know? So next we got to come up with a plan. Where do we want to start? We're limited. Everybody has the same number of hours in the day. So where are we going to start? You know, so for example, with Google, if we see, so real estate agents in whatever the city is, those are typically dominated by these lists. So I'm not going to start by writing a bunch of blog articles. I'm going to start by getting on those lists and getting into the Google ads as well. And Google has multiple kinds of ads, by the way. So something with real estate, you got to be in Google local ads, which is different from Google search ads, which is different from Google My Business ads, right? So we were just looking at this before the call today. And so real estate agents, there's all three are showing up, all three ads plus the organic version of each of them. So we would want to start with buying our way in, because that's going to be the fastest to that ad space, and then buying our way onto these lists, or at least getting ourselves listed on them, even if it's for free towards the bottom, depending on our budget limitations. And then we can start saying, okay, what about organically? Now we can start doing some website work and some blog articles and stuff if we're still going to be focusing on Google. But it's a possibility that there's other search engines. So there's websites these days like Upwork or Bark.com where people might go to look for services, or Yelp, right? And so being on those as well, that might take precedence over blog articles. So we do want to figure out not only where people are looking, and then what is going to be the highest impact place, and we're going to start working our way down the list. The goal is to eventually be available everywhere. Knowing we can't do that tomorrow, we got to break that work up, and we've got to get where we can today. So prioritize based on impact, and then we just got to start working our way through it.
Yeah. As you were speaking there, I was imagining almost like in a cartoon character where the character's been rubbed out by an eraser, and it's just like this white kind of smudge. I was imagining these fingers kind of typing on a keyboard, but I couldn't see the customer. Like there was no avatar. I didn't know if there were wrinkly old fingers or super young and nimble fingers, because we don't know who's searching. So it's being available everywhere, but to everyone. And it was, it made me think of one of our clients where, we let Facebook do some of the targeting, and they ended up targeting people that we would never think to target,
right?
Because those are the ones clicking. I think it was a wedding. It was something to do with weddings, and you'd think, well, we're going to target young people getting married from 20 to 45, and it turned out the people most excited and interesting and clicking and talking were above 65. I think it was that.
Yeah, and that's, I mean. I'm not convinced that Facebook's algorithm is fully functional as far as it's, we were testing out different types of ads. So on a click ad for this wedding venue, people over 65 are the people who Facebook is showing this to, probably because they're clicking. Yeah. Now, I'm not convinced that those are buyers, but they might be. And so that's where tracking and stuff comes in. I would have expected younger folks, or potentially even their parents, but over 65, we're going to be looking more into the grandparent generation for folks who are getting married. And so right now, we're kind of asking the question is, well, were we that far off? Are these actually potential customers, or are they just, people who are sitting in their houses looking at wedding photos, and they're clicking on these ads because they want to see some cute wedding pictures,
Yeah. And
not sure
I think there's a few things that I'm interested in there. The one is the kind of the process of engaging, right? They could have just been, I just want to remember my wedding.
Yeah.
And I think what I love about, what you've brought up here is tracking. we need to know what the result of that shelf was.
Yes.
So we got on the shelf, and there was interaction. But did they take the item to the checkout, or did they not? Did they kind of pick it up, put it down? So it's part of a different conversation. But
I think that's first in this process, we'd first want to get onto the list. But then, we do want to know if that's a worthy investment. Do we want to be on the free part of the list, or do we want to be on the paid part of the list up towards the top?
Yeah.
And so we've definitely got to be tracking, where do these leads come from? If one list is getting way more leads than another list, well, that tells me we should be spending more money on the list that is getting us more leads.
Yeah.
But we're not going to know
or lists like it. Yeah.
From the front end.
We could look at lists that are like it, because I guess not all lists are created equal.
Right. Absolutely. And keeping in mind that these lists are trying to sell you. So they're going to try to convince you that you're going to get all these leads from that list. And you got to get in and find out for yourself.
Yeah. These lists are selling you. I just think of I can actually see every meeting that I had with these different marketing agencies as well as consultants, and they were selling me on a service, right? And I think so much of marketing is not chosen from a place of empowerment. It's chosen from a place of desperation. We know that we have to be marketing. If we're not marketing, we're dying. There is atrophy, and it exists in the world, and businesses are crumbling unless you keep them up. Houses are falling apart unless you build them up. So marketing, we know that. Marketing is that maintenance. It's that resisting the elements. And so we're desperate. As a business owners are desperate to find someone that says, this is exactly what's going to happen, and here's your return, and we can promise this. And I guess this podcast is another kind of line in the sand to say, there are so many variables at play here, but
I think
if you're not available, there's no chance.
Right.
That anything will work.
I would be wary of anybody who's guaranteeing things, because the issue is if we could spend X number of dollars and make X number of dollars, we can guarantee something. But in all of these cases, we have competition. So it's not just going out and buying leads. We are competing with people. And the problem in marketing is we don't always know who we're competing against. Sometimes we do. Yeah. Sometimes we have a really good idea. Sometimes there are unknown players, though, that we're competing against. The other issue is we don't know everything that they're doing. And so it's kind of like playing chess, where we're not sure who we're playing against, and we're not sure what the person is doing. Yeah. That's a tough game. And so at ClearBrand, we don't make guarantees because there's just so many variables. We have goals. I think for marketing, I want to be seeing 10x return on investment. That's where we want to get to. The issue is your market share has an impact on your return on investment. The smaller your market share, the bigger your marketing budget needs to be, which also means you're going to have a lower return on investment at the beginning. You're buying your way into the market. So the bigger you get, Apple's marketing budget at this point is a very small percentage of their revenue. I think that it was around $2 billion last I checked. And they're making hundreds of billions of dollars. Their market value is, I think, 2 or 3 trillion, but that's not their revenue. Their revenue is in the hundreds of billions of dollars. And so 2 billion is a pretty small percentage of that. But also, they build products that advertise for them. So every iPhone is not only a product that somebody bought, it is also advertising for Apple. Yeah. I think this is part of why they have the notch. And the new iPhones have the dynamic island, but the notch is an indicator that person is using an iPhone. It's an iPhone even if you can't see the Apple logo on the back. That is advertising for Apple. Same thing with the MacBook, right? You take your laptop to a coffee shop and you open it up, and there's that Apple logo right there on the back of the laptop, and it's face up, so that everybody who's looking at that Apple logo they are being advertised to by Apple.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a really creative way. Apple's essentially being paid for their advertising, right? That you're buying
and there's,
the MacBook, and then you're advertising for
there's
Apple.
so many powerful associations to that as well, right? I mean, there's the set and setting that MacBook is in, the cool coffee shop, the relaxed person enjoying seamless technology use, all of this context of the shelf, right? This is they're looking at the shelf, they're seeing that they know that it's available, they can take out their phone and buy an iPhone, and boom, they can, within 2 seconds, they can buy what they're looking at as well.
Yeah. Right. And I think this is probably part of why Samsung and Google are slowly losing market share to Apple. You can't tell what phone it is with those ones when you're looking at it.
Yeah.
It's not successfully advertising for Facebook or for Samsung or Google.
Yeah.
It's an attempt. And Samsung, I think, is doing a better job than the Google Pixel phone is. But it's an attempt, but it's not quite as successful, right? People, when the Notch came out, people were like, "No, not the Notch." But it's successful advertising. You know what phone that is. Even if people don't like the Notch, it's still advertising.
I mean, we can go down the Apple rabbit hole for ages, but I will just say, I remember the one Samsung ad was a knockoff of the Notch, but it's still talking about their shelf. It's like I'm giving up my shelf space to say, hey, we're not that shelf over there. We're definitely not that shelf.
And Samsung,
which is still pointing. Yeah.
Samsung regularly does this. They run ads that talk about Apple.
Yeah.
They're advertising for Apple. I mean, they're advertising for both companies simultaneously when they do that.
Yeah.
Which is another interesting thing here.
You were mentioning at the start of this building memories.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about what you were just saying now about market share as well. And, the smaller your market share, the more aggressive you need to be marketing to take on that marketing share. And I was thinking about that billboard, that McDonald's billboard. If it was the only one, doesn't make sense. But it's one of hundreds.
Right.
And you might drive along that highway and you'll see 4 billboards. And so 4 billboards is more than 4 times as effective as one billboard, which is where we come back to this idea of availability, that as you're walking through this, virtual shopping store, you're seeing the product on so many different shelves.
Right.
And it's reinforcing this idea that, it's available. Oh, it's available.
Yeah.
And then just like me today, reading a book, toothpaste, take out my phone, Sensodyne.
Yeah. And, it's interesting. There's people these days saying you have to see something 8 times before you really actually notice it. I'm not all the way convinced that that's true, but there is research that shows the more you see something, the more you prefer it, the more you've developed a preference for that thing. When I go look for products, what I typically want to do is I look for the ratings, and I try to make a rational decision rather than an emotional one, even though all this research says that we generally make buying decisions based on our emotions. And so what I do is I'll look up a bunch of these lists and see who's on the most.
Yeah.
So it's not even that just be like what you just said. It's not even being on one of these lists. I mean, that's helpful, but again, with availability, it's not just be available. The principle is maximize availability. So we want to be on all the lists. We want to be on all the places that somebody might buy from the category that we are in, right? Apple, of any company out there, Apple could justify not having their products on Amazon, but they are on Amazon. They could justify not being in Best Buy, but they're in Best Buy, right? They have their own online store and they have their own physical store, but they are still making sure that they are available wherever people are looking for them. I mean, if Apple's not breaking this rule of maximizing availability, I don't think any of us have an excuse. We've got to get out there. We've got to be on all the lists. We've got to be on the search results for people who are looking for us. We've got to be having those Google ads.
Yeah.
And that's how we're going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, and it might seem like, I'm not going to get that much of a percentage of revenue from that one list. And that might be true. But if we add up all of the lists, it is going to be a significant
Yeah.
percentage of revenue.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, there's just no turning off the brain.
Right.
There's no, here's the formula. Oh, I just follow the steps. Here's just, even with this availability, you still got to, because it's all important, you got to maximize availability, but where? How much does it cost? What is our budget? What percentage? How long can we make it last? And this is huge as well. You can be available for 6 months and your buyer is just not ready. Why? Because they happen to have stockpiled toothpaste.
Right.
And they don't need to buy for 6 months.
Yep.
But come that 7th month and you've run out of money for that shelf space because you were, spending more than your cash flow could allow. And that bulk buyer comes to town. Oh, I'm ready to buy. Oh man, toothpaste not on the shelf. Okay, I'll grab this other one. And that happened, in our child protection initiative. We were punting a new big product that had just landed in our country in South Africa. And we, went just kind of maxed out our spending for 2-3 months. And it was a new product. It needed time to get into they needed to see it. They needed to see it show up in reviews and other companies talk about it. It needed to get on more shelf space so that people that walked around the store was like, oh, I recognize that thing. It protects children. Let me see if I can use that,
Yeah, I'm starting to believe that a good part of starting a business and growing a business is simply surviving long enough to gain momentum. Apple, not everything that Apple launches is successful. Like the HomePod, for example. They don't even sell the HomePod anymore.
I was about to say, what is that?
Right. And when they launched the iPhone, it didn't have an app store. It just made phone calls and played music. And it took them, I think, about 3 months to sell 1 million. The next year, they sold 1 million iPhones in 2 days. And so you've got, and we can see this with Apple TV right now. Apple Music's a great example. They launched and it was like, oh, this isn't exactly where it needs to be. So they've got to survive long enough. And so while we do want to maximize availability, we also need to be monitoring that cash flow. We can't go spend all of our money to get everywhere tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we want to step our way in a way that keeps us in business. So if that means 2 lists plus some Google ads for the next year, as long as you're surviving, you're getting, little by little, you're growing here and there. That's better than spending yourself out of business, right? So even while we are pursuing maximum availability, we got to remember that that's the lifetime goal. That's the 10-year goal, right? Maximum availability. Yeah. Tomorrow, it might just be 1 list, and then a month from now, it might be a second list. So we do need to be available, but we've also got to be disciplined in this. What are the right places for now?
Yeah. Yeah. It makes me think of the segue between marketing and finance in a way, brand assets. If you were investing in an asset, are you going to go to the casino and put it all on black because maybe you'll hit it tomorrow?
Right.
That's not how you build wealth. That's not how you invest in your asset portfolio.
That's a great picture.
You got to go and buy the stock that's trading well and reinvest a little bit more and then a little bit more. And, this is on the S&P 100 and it always does well and it's guaranteed at this. And we slowly keep investing. And then you look back and compound interest and all those things.
Right. I think that's a great way to approach this. You don't know if you're looking at this idea of maximize availability, you don't know right now where you're going to get the best return on investment. Yeah. So that's a great point here. We do, when we're working with a client in this, we spend in small ways at the beginning and we see what's getting the return and then we increase that. Yeah. So we had a client who'd never run Google ads before. We're like, we recommend that, right? People are searching on Google. So we started with a small budget. We saw some good number of leads coming in at a good price because Google will track that for you. And as long as you have goals set up in Google Analytics and all this. And so we saw, okay, we've got a good price per cost per lead coming in. That's great. We're getting clicked. And Google's telling us that there are more searchers. Let's increase the budget a little bit. Let's see if what happens there, right? And So we don't want to be putting all our money on black, like you said.
Yeah.
So it's this idea from Jim Collins of fire bullets, then cannonballs. The idea is a bullet is small, a cannonball is big, right? So we've got to be very careful in our testing. But we're asking that question. These are all the places that people might find a company like ours. So let's fire bullets. Let's do small tests in all of these areas. And then when we know which of these areas is giving us a nice ROI, we can increase that one with the long-term goal of being available everywhere that people buy the thing that we sell. But the short-term goal is we got to survive long enough to grow. Got to survive long enough to build that momentum. So maybe Amazon's the right place to start for a lot of products. I mean, books these days, you can self-publish through Kindle.
Yeah.
That might be a great place to start to see if there's interest for this thing. And then we can go spend more and more on other places to be available. And of course, there's also the building memories and the reach, which we're not going to talk about today, but those are also going to take a portion of your budget as well. And so we've got to be testing this out in a way that's not going to put us out of business while we are going through the process of maximizing availability.
So we can't just keep busy with hope marketing? Is that what you're saying?
Hope? Oh, man.
Have you heard of hope marketing? I hope this works. Oh, man, I hope this works.
Right.
That's what we did for about 3 years in my child protection initiative. Well, I hope parents get this. Oh, I hope they click on this.
Right. I mean, I wish we could deposit hope in the bank account.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah. We gotta approach this systematically. So the maximized availability is that baseline strategy, but we've got to approach it in a wise way. You know, one of the possibly the single biggest risk for businesses is to run out of cash. So we just cannot run out of cash while we're testing these things. Yeah.
Because running out of cash brings a line in the sand. Fortunately, in my life, the line in the sand led me to ClearBrand, which is where I'm very, very happy to be a part of the team and investing in helping marketing departments, marketing agencies, small businesses, big businesses, marketing teams get results, learn how to implement these kind of frames in marketing. So it's been a great conversation.
Awesome. Yeah, I think this, we've really covered this maximize availability. I'm excited to jump into building memories and reaching the market, but we'll have to do that next week. Thanks for listening to the ClearBrand Academy podcast, where we take the mystery out of marketing and help you get more leads and sales with a clear brand and proven marketing tactics. If you liked this podcast, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to outsource your marketing to our team, go to clearbrand.com.